Dad shouted. "You're the most useless child I have." The room went silent. I stood up, my hands trembling, and said coldly, "Then stop calling me when you need money." His face turned pale. Everyone stopped breathing. "My name is Hannah Reed. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. Because what happens when the child they call useless is the very one keeping their entire world from collapsing." The dining table stretched long, candles flickering, plates half full. My siblings stared down at their food, afraid to intervene. My mother's fork clinked softly against her glass, as though noise might distract from the words still burning the air. But nothing could erase them. Useless. The word had lived in my shadow for years, whispered behind my back, thrown in my face whenever I dared to speak. And yet, it was my paycheck that covered the mortgage when Dad fell behind. My credit card that kept the lights from flickering. My signature that bailed out my brother when his car was repossessed. Every breath they took was padded by the silence of my sacrifices. And now, with the whole family watching, Dad had ripped the mask away, not realizing the one thing he feared most wasn't my weakness. It was my voice. I felt the tremor in my hands, the tightness in my chest, but I didn't back down. Not this time. The words had slipped out before I could stop them, but once spoken, they didn't belong to me anymore. They belonged to the room, to the silence, to the truth. "Then stop calling me when you need money." My father's jaw locked. My sister dropped her fork. My mother's lips parted, but no sound followed, because they all knew. Every useless chore, every unworthy sigh, every weak accusation. It all cracked under the weight of reality. I was the one holding the floor beneath their feet. And for the first time, I wasn't holding it anymore. The silence didn't break. It deepened. And I realized, sometimes the loudest revenge begins not with rage, but with one line that makes everyone else choke on their own denial. And I had just delivered it. The silence after my words stretched longer than any argument we'd ever had. My father, who never faltered in front of anyone, stared at me as though I had pulled the floor from beneath his feet. His fork slipped, clattering against porcelain, the sound sharp enough to make my sister flinch. I had never said no to him before. Not once. And yet, the truth hung in the air. I was done being the family's hidden wallet. Mom tried to intervene first. "Hannah, don't speak that way. He didn't mean it." But her voice lacked conviction. She knew he meant it. He had always meant it. My brother chuckled nervously, trying to break the tension. "Come on, Dad's just upset. Don't take it so seriously." But I did take it seriously. Because this wasn't the first time. It was the culmination of every quiet sacrifice, every swallowed insult, every time I paid their bills while being told I wasn't enough. The tremor in my hands steadied. I felt a strange calm. "You want useless?" I said, my eyes locked on Dad's. "Then start living without the money you begged for last month. Or the loan I co-signed so this house wouldn't be repossessed. Or the tuition I covered when you said you couldn't." My words landed like stones in still water, ripples spreading across the room, hitting every person seated there. Dad's face drained of color. My sister's jaw dropped. My mother looked down at her plate, as though the answers might be hiding in the peas. No one breathed, because for the first time, the one they called useless had lifted the curtain. I stood taller, the weight sliding off my shoulders. From this moment forward, I said softly, "You'll never hear the word help from me again." I pushed my chair back, the scrape of wood against tile slicing through the silence. And as I walked toward the door, no one followed. Because deep down they knew the truth. The day I stopped carrying them was the day their world would begin to collapse. I didn't slam the door when I left. I didn't have to. The silence trailing behind me was heavier than whatever could be. The night air hit my face, cool and sharp, and for the first time in years, I breathed without the weight of owing anyone an explanation. My phone buzzed almost instantly. "Mom. Hannah, please come back. You're making this worse." My sister. "What about the electric bill? It's in your name. Don't be dramatic." My father. Nothing. Just silence. The same silence he gave me every time I paid without question. I turned the phone over, screen face down, and kept walking. The next morning, I opened my banking app. Years of quiet withdrawals stared back at me. Rent checks, utility payments, loan transfers. Each one a bruise I had ignored. One by one, I began to undo them. Auto pays canceled. Accounts unlinked. Access revoked. It wasn't rebellion, it was release. By noon, the calls started again. My brother's voice this time, low and urgent. Dad's furious. He says you've betrayed the family. He says we can't make it without you. I almost laughed at the irony. Useless, he called me. And yet, without my so-called uselessness, their world was already shaking. That evening, I sat at my own small kitchen table, a bowl of soup steaming in front of me. The quiet felt strange, but it wasn't lonely. For the first time, it was mine. My phone buzzed once more. A voicemail from Dad. His voice wasn't thunderous this time. It was cracked, uneven. "Hannah, we need you. Call me back." The man who had shouted useless in front of everyone now couldn't breathe without what I had given him. I saved the message, not out of pity, but proof. Because this wasn't the end. This was the unraveling. And they hadn't even begun to see how far it would go once the world outside those four walls found out who they truly were. The unraveling began faster than I imagined. By the end of the week, the power company called me. Not them. "Your account is scheduled for shutoff. Would you like to update your payment method?" I smiled faintly. "No. Please close the account. It's no longer my responsibility." The operator hesitated. "Are you sure? The balance is—" "I'm sure," I interrupted. The lights in that house would flicker out, not because I failed them, but because I stopped saving them. That evening, my sister showed up at my apartment door, mascara smudged, voice sharp with desperation. "You can't just cut us off, Hannah. We'll lose everything." I looked her in the eye. "Funny. That's what Dad said about me. That I was nothing. That I was useless. Now you'll find out how useless I really am." She stammered, her usual arrogance gone. "It was just words. You know how he gets. You're taking it too far." Too far? I thought of the years I carried their burdens silently, my own dreams postponed, my health sacrificed. If anything, I had never gone far enough. "I'm not taking it too far," I whispered. "I'm finally stopping." She left in tears, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. 2 days later, my mother called. Her voice was trembling. "Hannah, the bank is threatening foreclosure. We can't make the payments without your help. Please think of your family." My chest tightened, not from guilt, but from clarity. "Family thinks of each other," I said quietly. "You thought of yourselves. Now it's my turn." The silence on the line told me she understood, maybe for the first time. I hung up and sat back, a strange calm washing over me. The girl they had labeled useless was the only reason they'd survived this long. And now, without me, the cracks they plastered over with denial were splitting wide open. But I wasn't finished. Because truth has a way of finding light. And soon, the same community that once admired my father's pride would see the real story of who held the family together and who tore it apart. By Monday morning, the story wasn't just whispered inside our house. It was spilling outside, into places my father couldn't control. At the hardware store, 2 men glanced at him and muttered, "That's the guy who called his daughter useless." At church, neighbors shifted in pews, offering me smiles but greeting him with silence. The family's reputation had been built on his pride, but pride cracks quickly when the truth leaks through. And the truth had found me. I didn't tell anyone what happened at the dinner table. I didn't have to. My sister had recorded it on her phone, not to defend me, but to laugh later. But the clip slipped online. His words spread across social feeds like wildfire. "You're the most useless child I have." Her reply, "Then stop calling me when you need money." The video racked up thousands of views overnight. Comments poured in. "She's the strong one. Imagine insulting the person who pays your bills." The mask my father wore, respected, admired, untouchable, was crumbling in real time. At home, the phone rang off the hook. Reporters, friends, family members he hadn't spoken to in years. Each call another stone thrown at the glass house he had built. He stormed into my apartment unannounced, face flushed with rage. How could you humiliate me like this? Do you know what people are saying? I stayed calm, sipping my tea. They're saying the truth. And for once, it isn't me carrying your secrets. He sputtered, fists clenched, but I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. Dad, I said, steady, you called me useless. And yet, without me, you can't even keep the lights on. Now the world sees it too. So, if you want to stop drowning, start swimming on your own. His mouth opened, then shut. The anger in his eyes gave way to something I had never seen before. Fear. Because he realized what I already knew, his power over me had been built on silence. And silence was gone. The collapse had begun, and I wasn't the one falling. By midweek, the collapse was undeniable. The power company cut service to the family house. The bank placed a foreclosure notice on the front door. Neighbors who once waved politely crossed the street instead. Everywhere my father went, whispers followed. That's him, the one from the video. And still my phone buzzed. Mom's messages turned desperate. Hannah, please. We can't live like this. People are mocking us. Just help for a few months, until things calm down. My sister tried guilt. Do you really want us to lose everything? You're destroying the family name. But the truth was clear. The family name was never destroyed by me. It was destroyed by the man who built it on pride and insults, forgetting the one person holding it together. One night, I sat at my desk, scrolling through the clip again. My trembling voice saying, "Then stop calling me when you need money." His face pale. The silence after. It wasn't just a moment. It was history catching up with him. The next morning, I received an invitation from the local community center. They were hosting a panel on financial independence and resilience, and they wanted me to speak. Not Dad. Not the man who once commanded respect in every room. Me. When I walked on stage, applause thundered. I spoke simply. For years, I was told I was useless. And yet I paid the bills, I kept the house, I carried the weight. Useless wasn't truth. Useless was fear. Because when people realize who really holds the power, their control slips away. The crowd rose to its feet. Cameras flashed. Across town, my father sat in a dark living room, powerless in more ways than one, watching his useless daughter become the voice people actually listened to. For the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt seen. And I knew this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my place in a world where silence no longer chained me. But one last moment still waited, a moment where my father would finally face the truth he'd spent a lifetime denying. The moment came faster than I expected. The annual neighborhood banquet, the one event my father never missed, was set for Saturday night. It was his stage, his pride, the place where he shook hands and told stories of a family he claimed to lead. This year, the whispers preceded him. When I walked into the banquet hall, conversation stilled. Heads turned, not toward him, but toward me. The useless daughter now carried an introduction printed neatly in the program. Keynote guest, Hannah Reid, advocate for financial independence. I saw his face from across the room, stiff, pale, lips pressed tight. He hadn't been warned. The host took the microphone. Tonight, we honor a woman who showed us what strength looks like, even when her own family doubted her. Please welcome Hannah Reid. Applause filled the hall. I stepped onto the stage, not with trembling hands, but with steady steps. I grew up being told I was useless, I began. A hush spread over the tables. But uselessness doesn't pay mortgages. Uselessness doesn't cover tuition. Uselessness doesn't keep a roof from caving in. For years, I carried burdens in silence. But silence doesn't erase the truth, it only delays it. The audience leaned in. And the truth is simple. The one they called useless was the only one keeping things together. A gasp rippled through the room. My father's glass slipped, clinking against the table. I continued, softer now, but sharper than ever. Being underestimated is painful, but it also gives you the clearest power, the power to walk away. And when you walk, everything they built on your back crumbles. Applause erupted, rising to its feet. Cameras flashed. My mother looked down, my sister fidgeted, and my father's face turned to stone. But it didn't matter, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't speaking to him. I was speaking over him. And the room, the very community he once commanded, was listening to me. The banquet ended with a standing ovation. And I knew the finale had arrived, not for them, but for me. The moment I would finally close the chapter they wrote for me and sign my own ending. The banquet ended, but the echo of applause followed me home. For once, I wasn't carrying shame in my chest, only clarity. That night, I opened the family group chat. The last unread messages glared back at me. Mom, you're tearing us apart. Sister, delete that video. Fix this. Dad, silence as always. I typed slowly, each word measured. You called me useless. But without me, you've proven exactly who's powerless. I hit send, then muted the chat forever. The next morning, the newspaper arrived on my doorstep. On the front page, a headline stretched across the fold. From useless to unstoppable, Hannah Reid inspires a movement. Below it, a photo of me at the banquet, smiling, the crowd behind me on their feet. I clipped the article and tucked it into a drawer, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Because revenge hadn't been about humiliating them. It had been about refusing to shrink, refusing to carry their weight while they spit on my worth. My father lost his audience. My sister lost her sneer. My mother lost her shield. But me? I gained myself. The word useless no longer cut. It dissolved, powerless, in the face of what I had built. Independence, dignity, and a voice no one could silence. I poured coffee, opened my window, and let the morning air rush in. For the first time, I didn't dread the day. I welcomed it. Because I wasn't their scapegoat anymore. I was Hannah Reid, and my story had only just begun.